Hi, I'm Rohan Parashuram Kanawade, writer and director of feature film Sabar Bonda, Cactus Pears. It's my debut feature, and you're listening to Trust Me, I Know What I'm Doing.
My name is Abhay Dandekar, and I share conversations with talented and interesting individuals linked to the global Indian and South Asian community. It's informal and informative, adding insights to our evolving cultural expressions, where each person can proudly say, "Trust me, I know what I'm doing." Hi, everyone. On this episode of Trust Me, I Know What I'm Doing, we share a conversation with filmmaker Rohan Parashuram Kanawade. Stay tuned. As always, thank you for listening and watching and making Trust Me, I Know What I'm Doing part of your day. I know it takes time and effort, so I really appreciate you engaging with me here and for sharing this with all your friends and family. And again, if you're enjoying these, it would mean a great deal if you can take a moment and share a kind rating or a written review. So many times baked into the several hundred conversations that we've shared is a theme that I'm always interested in hearing more about, which is finding surprising stories to tell that came from unexpected occurrences. For filmmaker Rohan Parashuram Kanawade, this has been a recurrent theme in his ongoing journey that speaks to a very organic expression of his own unique storytelling. Rohan grew up in a Mumbai slum. His dad was a chauffeur and his mom was a homemaker, and they were both incredibly supportive of his self-driven quest to pursue art and film. After success with short films like U Ushatsa and Kirki, he developed and iterated several versions of his debut feature as an independent filmmaker called Sabar Bonda, or Cactus Pears, which not only premiered recently as the first ever Marathi feature film at the Sundance Film Festival, but took home the Grand Jury Prize in the World Cinema Dramatic Competition. The film is a semi-autobiographical story that centers around a man who, while visiting his ancestral village to grieve the loss of his father, finds solace, tender comfort, escape, and intimacy through a childhood friend. The kind of film that resonates loudly through its quiet, very relatable human expression. As we always find high value in local authenticity, Rohan wanted to importantly highlight very personal themes of sexuality, cultural ties, and family relationships as manifested by rural and working poor characters, all of which have deep anchors in his own woven journey. We were able to catch up about his filmmaking and learn lessons along the way, and I of course wanted to know more about the atmosphere and vibe that he was encountering at Sundance.
Oh, atmosphere! It's great. There's so many people, so many filmmakers here, and we've been meeting other filmmakers. We met the Sundance team finally. Like we've been just in touch with them on emails or with Kim we were on Zoom calls.
Yeah.
But for the first time, I met her. I met the director Eugene and other programmers. Spoke to them, and they shared their thoughts about the film. And yeah, it was great being here because I've always wanted to come to those big festivals.
Yeah.
And Sundance was one of them, and finally, and I've been, I have previously I have submitted my feature scripts for their screenwriting labs, but now, finally here with the finished film is something interesting. So
No, and I mean, there's definitely an energy that, an excitement, and
it's like here that main street, the way it is lit up and everything, it feels more like a festival. I mean, of course it's a film festival, but it's more than that. It looks something else.
Yeah. Something more than just the sort of physicality of it. Like I said, there's a vibe to the entire space that helps. I've been reading and learning a little bit more about Sabar Bonda, and it's your first feature, and it's been kind of described as warm and intimate and very tender as a story. And these themes are definitely words and themes that take patience, particularly to really develop. And I'm wondering what you perhaps learned, particularly as a filmmaker, about patience in making this film and really presenting those very important themes.
Patience is, I think, something that as a filmmaker or a creator you really need, though, that one talent, I would rather say, or either the skill, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But you really need it, because sometimes when you're making an independent film, it takes a very long time,
Yeah.
depending on what you're making and the kind of support you get during that journey. So it takes a lot of time for us also. I mean, we started working on it on in 2020, so it
Mm.
took us this many years to finish the film. So yeah, patience is something you really need. I mean, also when you're shooting it, that's so then you really need patience, because you are doing so many, you have to make so many decisions,
Yeah.
and you have to have patience, and it's really important.
And in particularly thinking about the themes and the story that you're presenting, did that also, help in a way to allow for things, the story to develop and allow for that particular, again, vibe or the temperature of this film to stay in a very kind of like slow and developing fashion, unlike maybe, some other types of films that are out there that they feel like they're very, very pressured and rushed.
Yeah, no, exactly. The whole idea also was to preserve that passing of time, which is slow. Because,
Yeah.
when you grieve, I mean, there are many people who must have, gone through this experience of grieving
Yeah.
their loved ones. And though that time, that initial period, I think that always feels very slow because of all the void that you feel and emotion.
Mm.
So it feels slow. And I think we wanted to preserve that. And
Yeah.
and on top of that, when I was mourning my father, I was in my ancestral village. And when you're in the village, anyway, time goes slow. So
Yeah.
that was the added thing into it. And then because I was not doing anything when I was there at my ancestral village mourning my father, me
Yeah.
and my mother would just sit in the house the whole day.
Yeah.
Our relatives will go, they would just go out and do their works, they go to the farm. So it's just me, it used to be just me and my mother, and then just quiet throughout the day. So yeah, that slowness I wanted because of that whole
Mm.
setting and the experience. And it is also a kind of a portrait of that time, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting because especially after the loss of a parent, the mourning process, you have to deal with very adult like items, and yet you're brought back to a place where you've been a child. And, for you, was there some dichotomy here in particularly choosing mourning and grief and emptiness and loss as kind of backdrop anchors for a film that otherwise is, relatively romantic and has some narratives about a developing relationship?
so the basically, when I was grieving my father, I was trying to find escape, because all the relatives who came to meet us, they were only talking about my marriage. And because I was 30 then,
Yeah.
and I had lost my father, and so all of a sudden I had become the head of the
Focal point.
family.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then everyone started saying, no, now you have to get married, your
Yeah.
mother needs someone, and all that stuff started happening. And so I was just all the time trying to find the escape. And
Yeah.
that's why I had this thought, what if I had a friend over here who knew about me? I would have just sneaked out.
Yeah.
So when I started thinking about that, I felt there is a story here.
Yeah.
And that's how actually the that inspiration came, because I was trying to find escape all the time. So
And that's not necessarily an obvious backdrop.
exactly, because I never thought about I want to make film on this, because I had that thought when I was there in the house.
Yeah.
And throughout those 10 days I was just thinking, how can I just go out, how, where? And then later on I just felt like, yeah, I can maybe write something on this is something interesting over here. And
Yeah.
maybe if I start exploring this, I can actually change my experience and make it tender and warm for the central character, and basically reimagining that whole time. So
Yeah.
that's how it came to me. It was not that I wanted to write this story using this background. Everything was just there, the thoughts that came, that just uh, turned into this idea.
Let me ask you, I mean, some of your previous films, if I had to think of like words to describe them, right? Your short film, Kiriki, maybe is, about the obvious voyeurism that's there. And the film that you made, Ushatsa, is a little bit about discovery. And in this particular case, what would be the word maybe that describes Sabar Bonda?
Oh, it's It's I think it's finding someone uh,
Mm,
uh, in a time or place where you don't expect that. Uh,
yeah.
and basically, it's like it's I think it's more a romance drama,
Mm,
because I didn't want to make a film about grieving period or
right.
dealing with grief. I mean, there is grief, the character is dealing with it, but I think romance becomes a takes over, and that's when that journey for this character becomes tender, and it also helps the love and affection that he receives.
Yeah.
That helps him to deal with his grief. I think so. I think at its core, it's a romance drama. I would rather say that.
Yeah. Do you think that sometimes it's helpful to understand the surprises that come from trauma?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I guess with that, because a lot of times these are aha moments. There's an open window someplace, you're peering into it. There's a friendship that develops in an area of absence, and now in this particular example, right, there's a period of time where you're really going through a lot of loss and emptiness, and yet the surprise of a connection, maybe a kind of dormant connection, is there. That seems to be sort of like a formula, maybe for some of the stories that you're presenting. Is that something that you have found easy in a way, or like natural to portray as a filmmaker?
Yeah, but that's what it was like. I never really sat to think what I want to do. This was literally organic.
Yeah,
And one of the other things that I would add here, that since my childhood, whenever I used to go to my ancestral village, I used to always say, have this question in my mind, that are there any gay guys here?
yeah,
So that was another, the childhood thought also helped me add that in this film, because even though when I was thinking that, what if I had a friend over here, but when I was thinking about that, then I thought, oh, okay, the a thought I had in my childhood, maybe these two I can combine, and something can come out of it. So
mm,
it was a surprise, but I think it was organic. It was just, as I was just thinking more about it, just yeah, all those thoughts were actually surprising me.
yeah,
But I was not surprised in a way that this is a very surprising setting, because
sure,
for many people it was like, some friends from my ancestral village, when they got to know that I've written a script, it's a romance when that happens during this grieving period, they were like surprised. I mean, how can this happen during grieving period?
yeah,
Even one of my friend who was with me in the script writing lab, so he knew about the script. And but even they recently, when he saw the film, and he was like, when I had read about the story for the first time, synopsis and everything, he was like, I was wondering, how is he going to do this film, this
right,
romance drama? So they were all surprised. For me, it was not, because first, grieving was it came from my own experience.
yeah,
Then rest of the things that I use, even though they are fiction, but they are also like things that I experienced in my child. Like when these
yeah,
two friends start spending time, they go for goat grazing. So
yeah,
I used to, as a child, I used to go with my cousins when they used to go for goat grazing. I used to go. It was exciting, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
so some of the memories from that time, just
right,
to be very hot. So most of the time, they would just let goats graze and sit under the tree. So
yeah.
those moments, those times. So I use all of those. So in a way, it was not really surprising, but yeah, it was
Certainly
surprising.
very, yeah, certainly very organic, and lots of ideas of nostalgia. म्हणजे गावात जाणं, आणि you're have whatever maja you think of as a child, that also gets woven in there, I'm sure.
Exactly, and I think it was organic in a way that I feel it's more like a life experience,
Mm,
which
yeah,
also helped me to write a story which now some of the people are saying is defying all the stereotypes.
yeah, sure,
So I think sometimes you just have to look within you,
yeah,
or just look at your own life experiences, and
right,
you might
right.
find some stories which you will not be able to write with using all the rules of writing the scripts and all. And that's when you will surprise, and the storytelling will be very unique, and unexpected
Mm.
unexpected things will happen in that story.
You're listening to Trust Me, I Know What I'm Doing. After a quick break, we'll come back to our conversation with filmmaker Rohan Parashuram Kanawade. Stay tuned. Conversation. It's the antidote to apathy and the catalyst for relationships. I'm Abhay Dandekar, and I share conversations with global Indians and South Asians so everyone can say, "Trust me, I know what I'm doing." New episodes weekly, wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Vivek Murthy. I'm the 21st Surgeon General of the United States, and you're listening to Trust Me, I Know What I'm Doing.
Hello everyone, my name is Tam France.
Hi guys, I'm Ananya Pandey.
Hi, this is Madhuri Dixit.
Hi, this is Farhan Akhtar.
I'm Kani Khusrodi, and you are listening to Trust Me, I Know What I'm Doing.
I'm Abhay Dandekar, and you're listening to Trust Me, I Know What I'm Doing. Let's rejoin our conversation now with filmmaker Rohan Parashuram Kanawade. There is such universality in specificity, right?
Yeah.
So when you are a storyteller, and I'm curious if this film for you, does it magnify your work or even sort of solidify your work as a queer filmmaker? Or does it purely add depth to what Marathi cinema is or Indian film is about, especially to broaden the category and break some stereotypes for what people perceive Marathi film or Indian film to be about? Or for that matter, is it actually both of those things?
Basically, we are not, whenever I was pitching the film, or even in the film, we have not even used the word gay, because
Yeah.
I don't want to present this film as I'm making a film about two gay men. It's just about two men. And that's when even, when people ask me about the one-liner or anything, I always say it's a romance drama between two men.
Yeah.
Because, we wanted to present these two men as like any other man. Sexuality is never your identity, and that's what we tried here also, that we need to normalize sexuality and present these characters as just human beings. So for me also, I don't know why people say that gay filmmaker or anything. It's more a film about humans and human experiences, and human experiences are so diverse. It's just not, you can't just put them in boxes.
Yeah, and hopefully those themes broaden the experience of what people then understand as, again, Indian cinema, Marathi cinema in general, right? I mean, it's more specific stories that allow us to, really broaden and generalize what our thought process is.
Yeah, and thankfully, when the programmers watched the film and they were, getting back to us, they always said, this is more than a romance or queer romance. It's more than that. And they were also telling us, please, whenever you are promoting film, please promote it like, don't promote it like a queer film. It's more than that. And even heterosexual people, some of my friends who saw the film, they connected with the film, and they didn't. They were not saying that this is a queer film. It's just a romance film, and even though the character has certain sexuality, but they said that some of the experiences that these characters are experiencing, we are also facing those things and experiencing those things in our life. So it's not only a queer experiences. Now some of the things that we have used in the film, they are actually universal things. So it's more a film, and I would like to, if people recognize me as a filmmaker than just a filmmaker. That is, I think, important thing.
Yeah. So, well said. And again, a love story and a romance drama is part of the human experience, not anything
one
else.
of the other things, like when some of the filmmakers only make horror films, we don't call them horror filmmaker, right? Like we know some film, they only explore horror themes.
Yeah.
When we don't call them a horror filmmaker, why people call filmmakers who explore sexuality in their, so why they have to have, that.
And yet one, sometimes that poses an interesting question, in that for other filmmakers or people who are trying to tell stories of in the queer space, is it also important to recognize that there is a place and there's space for these kinds of stories? And then it's very important for those stories to actually be told.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, you have such a unique background that you share, of course, with your parents and your upbringing. And as you mentioned, this film is yet another part of the human experience. How does this film, you think, resonate, especially for those who may be youth or young adults, particularly, who are in rural spaces, who are in areas where there are working poor, where there are slums as well? How does this film, you think, maybe hit some of those people who are now watching this?
I think we made it specifically for that reason because, when I was watching some of the queer films, and I always felt, even some of the Indian queer films always had the influence of Western queer films because you see all the, things that they tackle, the conflict with the parents and,
Yeah.
coming of age and accepting the sexuality and everything and everything. And then on top of that, I have always seen that those films always had this either city based stories or stories based in upper class, and that's when I was like, I don't see myself here, or I don't
Yeah.
see any of my experiences in these stories. And that's when and then because this film is so much personal storytelling, I had to use some of my own backgrounds of growing up in a slum, and my economic background and my parents realities, like, so. And like most the biggest population of India lives in lower class strata or in rural areas.
Yeah.
And that's when I felt, when they watch this film, they will feel connected to it, and they will feel that this is our representation, and hopefully they will find some hope and optimism and warmth in it. And that was our whole point, and I just hope that they feel all these things when they watch it.
Right. And undoubtedly, hope, optimism, warmth are going to be a part of that experience. I'm so curious about this idea. Oftentimes people are learning many things as they go along their journeys. What did you have to particularly unlearn about yourself in making this film? What did you maybe have to undo or unpack or unlearn in order to make this film and present it like this?
I mean, one of the things that specifically was, I had to just be okay with certain things that are not in your control. Like, when I had certain ideas about some scenes, like the nature, the kind of light and everything, and, some of the other things, like houses, the way I wanted. So I had this particular idea that, I wanted both the houses in the village facing each other and, all that. One is a bungalow kind of a house, and the other one is just 2-room house, and they're facing each other, and they are in, like, there are mountains around it. And we only found one house, and which was in my mother's village. And there was no other house, and I was like, no, okay, so we are not shooting the film here. We have to find both the houses, and we have to find that village. And for 3 years we were looking for it, and we didn't find it. And finally my EP said, Rohan, you will not get everything.
Yeah.
You have to do some compromises, just find some other alternative ideas, or, think something that will work. But otherwise, we will not have any location, till the time we reach the shooting dates.
Yeah.
And finally, that's when I realized, okay, I mean, now there's no point being so rigid about it. That is how I want it.
Yeah.
Let's just be a little flexible and, start thinking about it. That's when I went back to my mother's village, and I saw this bungalow, and there was another house a little away from this bungalow, and it was facing in the other direction. But then I was like, this works. This house is interesting, and this works. Maybe I'll have to tweak some of the scenes a little, but still it works. And that's when I was like, some of these things I have to keep in mind when I start shooting the film. Because, it's like when you need bright light, that's when it becomes cloudy. When you need cloud, that's when it becomes bright. And, all these problems happens. And that's another thing I realize, sometimes, you just have to respond to the nature.
Yeah.
Because it's not in your control. And if you start responding to the nature, you will find some really magical things that you can never think of while writing the film. So
Yeah.
some of these things I thought, it's important, and I had to finally let go of some things and just embrace whatever was happening in that moment.
Yeah, there's a lot of peace in discovering how important it is to just roll with it and really understand that like you said, organic, let things sort of flow in that way. I'll ask you one last thing because it's always an important one for those people who are either rewatching some of your previous work, but now getting to know you as a filmmaker and watching Sabar Bonda and really experiencing this work for the first time. What do you hope are some of the questions that they're asking themselves after they experience your film?
I don't know. I don't think the kind of films that I make will question people. I don't know. I just feel that I tried to create some experience, and I tried to make films which are open for interpretation, and I feel films should be like that, because then every individual can interpret it the way they want, or the way they experience their life. So it's interesting, and if that film gives them any experience, i'm just I'm just always curious to listen to those experiences, because
Yeah.
as a filmmaker, you just make, or you write a story, or you want whatever that your perspective about life, you do that. After that, it's mostly I want to hear from audiences. So more than questions, I think if they have any experiences or they felt something, and if it has helped them to look at certain things differently, I would really love to know that, rather than that. And yeah, so all the audience members who are actually listening to it right now, if you watch my films, do let me know. You can connect with me on Instagram, and if you want to share your thoughts and your experiences, I would really love to hear them, because I feel that sometimes when you listen to the audience, and how they pursued certain scenes, or the dialogues, or a short framing, sound design, whatever that is, sometimes their experiences can help you understand something else that you never thought about.
Sure.
And it might help me as a writer and director for my next project. So
Yeah.
Learning about their experiences, it will actually help me enrich, or help me hone my craft even more for my next project. So yeah, that's what I think should happen.
Well, with those curiosities, those perspectives, those experiences, and as you mentioned, leaving hopefully with a lot of hope and positivity and optimism, I'm sure people are going to be enjoying your work for a long time. Rohan, thank you so much for joining me today. This was really a treat, and I hope we're able to connect down the road.
Yes, thank you, Abhay. Thank you for calling me for this podcast. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Rohan. And please check out more about him and his film, Sabar Bonda, Cactus Pears, at rohankanawade.com. Thanks to you also for sharing any kind review or rating and supporting Trust Me, I Know What I'm Doing. My heart and soul are with the City of Angels as it continues to recover, and you can please get involved by going to the many links and resources in the show notes. Till next time, I'm Abhay Dandekar.